Welcome to the Delmarva Almanac. Each week we connect you to the best of Delmarva. Now here's naturalist Dave Wilson and his guest, Dr. Aaron Hogue, to tell us about coyotes.
Dr. Hogue returns today for the second part of a two-part series on the loss of predators on the Delmarva Peninsula. Today we'll discuss the status of coyotes here. Dr. Hogue is a biology professor at Salisbury University, where he has worked for the past 11 years. He holds a PhD in evolutionary biology from Northwestern University in Chicago. His specialties are in mammalogy and evolution, and he's done extensive research studying the nexus between human activities, terrestrial habitat destruction, and species declines. Today I want to continue our discussion about the loss of mammalian predators by focusing on coyotes. First, Dr. Hogue, do we have a sense of the status of coyotes on the Eastern Shore?
Yes. On the Eastern Shore, in the state of Maryland, Maryland DNR considers them to be present in every county. Delaware, DNREC has stated that they are established in the state of Delaware, which means they're probably found in all or most counties of Delaware. In Virginia, there are records of them from Accomack County, and they are also present on islands at the southern tip of the peninsula, so they're probably essentially peninsula-wide.
Are these coyotes the same as western coyotes? I know coyotes aren't necessarily native to the East Coast. And how big are they, or is there any work on their DNA?
There is a single species of coyote in North America. When Europeans first arrived in North America, there's some controversy about the distribution of that species as well as other members of the genus Canis. But it appears that coyote were found largely in the central part of North America, and other species of Canis, including gray wolves and possibly red and or eastern wolves, were found to the north and in the eastern part of the continent. The persecution and eventual extirpation of wolves in the eastern United States essentially created a vacuum that the coyote then were able to fill. And so what ended up happening is coyote began to move eastward, and there's some question about exactly how that happened and when it happened, but it looks like they spread east in two waves, a northern wave that occurred probably earlier, starting in the early 1900s, and then a southern wave that started a little bit later. In both cases, they periodically encountered some of the remaining wolves and interbred with them. They also encountered domestic dogs and interbred with them. What ended up happening for our region, those two waves in the north and south eventually converged in the mid-Atlantic. The earliest record I have of coyote on the Eastern Shore, on the peninsula, is from 1921 in Kent County, and that suggests that the local coyote, the Coyote on Delmarva, are probably from that northern wave, since it was early in the 1900s. In any case, if you look at the DNA of eastern coyote, what you will find is there are very few that are pure coyote. Most of them contain some amount of wolf and dog DNA, roughly around 10%. So what that means morphologically is that coyote are typically somewhere, eastern coyote are somewhat intermediate between western coyote and wolves. They tend to be larger. I think western coyote are around 20 to 30 pounds on average, whereas eastern coyote are a little bit larger, in the range of 30 to 40 pounds, which is still nowhere near the size of gray wolves, which are sometimes around 3 times as large as western coyote.
What are these species eating on the shore?
There aren't any studies, to my knowledge, of what they're actually eating. Coyote, throughout their range, vary their diet based on what other species are present and also seasonally. So in many parts of the country during the summer, they're pretty omnivorous. So they'll eat berries, a lot of small mammals and other small vertebrates. In the wintertime, when a lot of those resources become less available, they start to shift to larger mammals, including deer. There is evidence that they not only eat deer, but actually will even take down mostly sick or injured adult deer. But they also scavenge pretty heavily on carcasses of deer that either died on their own or from roadkills.
What's the sense of their impact on biodiversity on the Eastern Shore?
With the lack of any large predators, they very likely probably fill a role somewhere intermediate between something like a cougar or a wolf and smaller carnivores. And so they probably are still somewhat omnivorous in the summer. They're still taking larger mammals in the winter and deer fawn in the spring, which means that they are serving a role in regulating those populations. And from an ecological perspective, the fact that white-tailed deer are so abundant on the Eastern Shore and have such dramatic effects on vegetation and then ultimately on other vertebrates that depend on that vegetation, they play an important ecological role potentially in minimizing that negative impact of deer and potentially some of the mesocarnivores, the mid-sized carnivores, by feeding on them, taking out fox and other mid-sized predators, including cats. That also very likely is performing an ecological service in minimizing their impact on small vertebrates, particularly breeding birds.
So how are they managed by the state? Are coyotes protected in any way, or do you feel the state might do a better job of managing coyotes? I know as a kid growing up watching Little Red Riding Hood and hearing all these stories, I have the sense that people think coyotes are dangerous to people. Is this a myth, or is there some truth to this? Can you elaborate on that?
They don't pose a danger to children. They do, however, pose a danger to cats that are running free. They, in areas where coyote occur and have been studied and their diet analyzed, domestic cats often comprise part of their diet. From someone's perspective that has an outdoor cat, that is obviously a concern. But if you step back and look at the devastating impact that cats have on songbird populations, they shouldn't be out of the house to begin with. And so the fact that coyote are actually controlling those populations is performing an ecological service, allowing some of those birds to survive and other small mammals to survive and perform the ecological roles that they're supposed to perform.
We've been talking to Dr. Aaron Hogue from Salisbury University. For more information on apex predators, coyotes, and other species on the Eastern Shore, you can go to delmarvaalmanac.com/nature.
Thanks, Dave. Well, that's all for this edition of the Delmarva Almanac. Be sure to follow us on Facebook or Twitter, and next week join us to learn more about our local culture and get connected to our natural wonders. We'd like to thank our community partners, the Friends of Delmarva Public Radio, and our underwriters for their help in bringing this program to you, our audience. If you'd like to become an underwriter for this program, visit delmarvaalmanac.com/support. Our theme music was provided by Brightside Studio. This show has been a Moonshell production. Thanks for listening. Until we meet again, may the rhythms and tides of Delmarva bring you good fortune.